Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of BDI's vlog series. Today I'm going to be talking about revalidation, so something that's going to impact everybody who is getting their GMC or has their GMC license. Okay, so what is revalidation? Revalidation is basically the GMC checking that you have and are maintaining the same clinical standards that are expected of you when they give you your medical license. So it will happen on a kind of 3 to 5 year cycle. You get given a revalidation date, and during that time you need to evidence that you are keeping up with current medical practice and that you are constantly learning and evolving your practice to suit advances in your area. So it's not designed to trip anyone up. Basically, if there are areas that you are weaker at, or there are things that you need more exposure to, it's not about saying, okay, you're a bad doctor, you're going to lose your license. It's just about checking that where you do need to improve, you are taking steps to formulate a plan to get better and evolve your practice constantly. Okay, so every 5 years, you're going to need to provide evidence, and you're going to need to sit down with an appraiser to submit basically a file that says what you're doing, how your practice is being developed, and what levels you're maintaining. Now, ultimately, it's the responsible officer, which I'll speak about in a second, who is going to make a decision about whether or not you're fine to continue with your license, in which case you'll be given a future revalidation date later in the cycle, whether you need to provide additional evidence, or whether or not, in the worst case scenario, a decision might be made to suspend a license until you've been able to evidence something more. The kind of evidence that you'll be talking about is pretty broad, so you'll need to make sure that you're doing an annual appraisal, and then once at least every 3 years you'll need to do 360 feedback. So you'll need to gather feedback from patients, from nurses, from more junior doctors, from your seniors, so that they can get a kind of well-rounded view of what you are like, not just clinically, but also the way that you interact professionally, so leadership, bedside manner, things like that. You'll also need to gain the number of CVD points that are required, so continual professional development. It might be that when you're reading a journal, you write down a couple of sentences about what you've learned and how that will impact your practice going on. Reflective pieces about joining MDT meetings, what you've learned from those, and maybe you've led some of them that you can use to evidence leadership within a medical setting. So there's quite a lot of evidence, but ultimately your designated body, which I'm going to talk about in a second, they'll be the ones to guide you through that process. Okay, so your designated body. You need to think of this almost like there's like a connection. So when you log into your GMC account, there is a section for revalidation, and it will ask you to identify who your designated body is. And when I say designated body, I mean it's the organization that you are attached to that's responsible for making sure that you have what you need to revalidate. So if you are working in the NHS, your designated body is your NHS organization. It will be the NHS trust that you're working for. If you are working through primarily a locum agency, provided that framework agency is approved by the government and holds all of the right credentials, they can be your designated body as well. And every designated body will have a responsible officer, and the responsible officer is kind of the head medical person who will make an evaluation on each case. You might never speak with your responsible officer. They might just review your case remotely without meeting you, but they are the ones ultimately who will have final sign off on what happens with your case. Okay, so given that we're working primarily with doctors who aren't yet in the country, what do you do about revalidation if you're not already here and working in the NHS? The answer is pretty straightforward. If you just got your license, or recently within the last 12 to 24 months, you don't really need to do anything. Ultimately, what would happen is once you've secured a job, you would inform the GMC who your employer is, who would become your designated body, and they will confirm that they are looking after you for the process of revalidation. If you don't have a job, or you're coming up to that date and you haven't worked in the UK, so for example, you're holding a GMC license to practice, but not practicing in the UK for a number of years, you ultimately have to let the GMC decide whether or not they can support you, or you become orphaned by the system. You may have to relinquish your license until you decide to return to the UK. Every situation is slightly different. We're more than happy to give advice and help to those who are in that situation. But if you, as I say, you are newly registered with the GMC, and when I say newly, within the last sort of year or two, and your revalidation date is still quite a way away, you should be absolutely fine to secure a job and then inform the GMC who your designated body are. Alright, thank you very much for catching up with our vlog. If there's anything that we can help you with, any questions you have, do get in touch with us at apply.bdiresourcing.com. Visit our IMG Advisor Facebook page and let us know if there's any content that you want us to cover in our next vlog. Thank you.